Hey, everybody. This episode of Our Kids Play Hockey is brought to you by our title sponsor, NHL Sense Arena. Look, we all want our kids to succeed in hockey, but let's face it, finding training that's both effective and enjoyable can be a real challenge, and not to mention expensive and a total drain on time, especially if you have to drive to the rink, pay a private instructor. There's so many reasons that money gets spent on this game. But that's where NHL Sense Arena steps in. It's a virtual reality training game that brings the rink into your home that takes off-ice training to a new reality. It's designed to improve hockey sense and IQ, something that's lacking majorly in the game today for both players and goalies. And you get unlimited access to over 100 drills and training plans from top coaches and players that can be played anytime, anywhere, with drills approved by USA Hockey player and goalie development directors. Look, improving mental hockey skills at home has really never been more fun, and any hockey player that uses this is going to have a blast. All right. I've used this before on my own, and it feels like you're so immersed in an arena, you sometimes forget you have a headset on. And again, it's not being on the ice, but it allows you to work on some of these skill sets like scanning, as I said before, hockey IQ, looking around the rink, making the right plays, that getting those repetitions in now as a hockey player are super important for your development. So NHL Sense Arena is giving all the listeners an exclusive offer for $50 off an annual plan when you use our code Hockey Never Stops at checkout. Again, that's Hockey Never Stops. All you got to do is go to hockey.sensearena.com. Again, that's hockey.sensearena.com. Use the code Hockey Never Stops, and you'll save $50 on your annual plan of NHL Sense Arena. Make sure to check that out and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Well, hello, everybody. Got an interesting guest today. Eric Ty is the president of the Flyers Cup, which is the eastern side of Pennsylvania's high school championship tournament. And we dove in today about really how that's organized, how it's a short process in terms of the games being played compared to the season-long process of putting it together. So we wanted to bring someone on that really is involved in the administrative side of creating something large like a high school championship tournament. So that's why we find Eric. And the other thing, too, is that we dive into kind of just how high school hockey is organized in Pennsylvania. And whether you're in Pennsylvania or not, it's just a great discussion about how high school hockey is very different from club hockey. And we compare and contrast and everything and talk about that. So really great episode again with Eric Ty here today. Also, we're in the season here. We're starting, we're moving, you're moving. So whether you're in sports or business, if you're looking to get your team a little bit more well-rounded, you're looking to turn individuals into a team, it's exactly what I do at Game 7 Group. So check our website out, game7group.com, or send me an email at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. And we can look at your team. We can discuss some options and see how we can move your team forward. Same professional team building that I do from the pros all the way down to the mites I've done in business and everywhere else. So if you're looking to improve your team for this season, whether it's business or sports, head over to game7group.com. But without any further ado, let's jump into the episode of Our Kids Play Hockey with Eric Ty. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Today's going to be a little bit of a special episode. We're talking kind of tournaments today, and we thought if we're going to talk tournaments or we're going to talk big championships and everything that comes along with that, let's bring someone in who has some experience and maybe a really high or great level with that. So we want to introduce you today to Eric Ty, who's the president of the Flyers Cup Committee. For all those listening outside of Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, don't worry, this will totally apply to you today. This is just someone we have locally because we're in the Philadelphia area. At least I am. Mike, I know you probably have people in your area too. But this will be the 45th year of the Flyers Cup tournament, and it is the tournament for high school teams in Eastern Pennsylvania. And the winners of several of the divisions play the Penguins Cup champion on the other side of the state, which might as well be another state. That's how we look at it here, to become the state champion. But when you look at it, there's 5 separate brackets for the Flyers Cup: AAA, AA, A, girls, and then a New Jersey and Delaware division. And games are played throughout the Delaware Valley. If you live in the area, you know about it. If you don't, from a high school level or a school level, this is the premier tournament, if you will. It's the premier league, if you will. And Eric, we're really excited to have you today to just kind of dive into what goes into being a president of something like this, and then how you help advance hockey forward through a platform like this. And I'm also excited to dive in there because I'm sure that, we're going to paint this thing for as awesome as it is, because it is a well-established kind of Eastern PA thing. But I'm sure that you get so much I'll say information from people about how it should be done, how they want it to be done, all the changes that should be made. So I want to look at it from both angles. But first off, just thank you so much for coming on the show today. We're happy to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So why don't we start with the basics of just how you got involved with the Flyers Cup and how you ended up ascending to the rank of president?
I have no idea. I was in the wrong spot at the right time. I've been I was a high school coach for 15 or so years, so I was involved with the Flyers Cup a little bit, and then 5 years ago, um, there was a change to the Flyers Cup committee, and people thought I would be a good person to be the president. So I'm the president, and by title only. It's not a one man show. I have a whole group of people behind me who help doing everything behind the scenes. So it's not a one person operation by any stretch of the imagination. I just have the title, and I'm the one who has to answer the questions and all that stuff.
That's why you're here on the show today. Now,
Right.
and again, just to kind of continue to paint the picture, if anyone has here ever been to a Philadelphia Flyers game, the Flyers Cup trophies are really proudly displayed right on the promenade there. You really can't go around the arena without seeing all of the trophies, all of the champions. They have the high school jerseys there. So this really is a mainstay in Eastern Pennsylvania. And again, every state has their own version of this. I know Northern Jersey has the same thing up at the Prudential Center. It's a really cool thing. So why don't you tell us about the Flyers Cup in general? Again, 5 divisions, how that's divided up, and how proud you are of how it's expanded over the years.
Yeah, the growth has been phenomenal. So just I guess we'll start from scratch. Like you said, there's 5 divisions. You have Pennsylvania boys, AAA, Double A, and Single A, and then the girls bracket, and then we have a separate bracket for New Jersey and Delaware. On the Pennsylvania side, the AAA division consists of all open enrollment schools, the prep schools, the Catholic schools, the private schools, and all that. So if you have open enrollment, you're automatically in the AAA bracket. And then Double A and Single A are divided by we go by the PI Double A. First of all, hockey is not a PI Double A sport, but we incorporate all the rules to make it as much as a high school thing as possible. So our break is 615 male students between grades 9 and 11. If you're 616 or higher, up to 1200, then you go into the Double A bracket. 614 or 615 and lower, you go into the Single A bracket. That's important for parents and kids who don't know the process, because you take high school hockey, which works that way on the enrollment numbers, compared to club hockey, right? Club hockey, everyone sees AAA, Double A, and Single A, and they think all the best teams are AAA. The middle team, the Double A teams are tier 2 teams, and the A teams are. It couldn't be further from the truth. Like the last few years, the A bracket winner in the Flyers Cup would probably beat most of the Double A and AAA teams. It's not based on talent or skill level. It's strictly based on the enrollment numbers of the male students in the school.
Right.
So we get questions about that all the time. So, and then the girls are up and coming, man. The girls bracket is up and coming. We're seeing a huge boost in it, and a lot of the schools started like maybe 2 high schools, neighboring high schools. If they each had 5 or 6 girls a couple of years ago, they just combined to make one team, and now those 2 schools have enough in each school to have their own teams, and it's coming. Our hope was to have a girls state championship this year, but we're waiting on the West. The West just started girls hockey a year or 2 ago, so it's not an easy process. So maybe within the next 2 years we'll have our first ever. I want the first girls state championship to be in 2026, right? Because 2024, the state championships are our side of the state this year in March. I don't want the first one to be next year out in Pittsburgh. I want the first girls championship to be here in our area.
Now, is that based on just that you run the area, or is that an East Coast, West Coast, Pennsylvania
I
rivalry
just
thing?
say that's just bragging rights. Hey, we have the
Right,
first
right.
one here. The fly, the east side of the state gets the first girls, but
Yeah.
who knows? And then you have the Jersey Delaware bracket, which is a little confusing as well because people see Jersey and they think it's the whole state of Jersey, and it's
Yeah.
not. North and Central Jersey have their own thing, and so this is pretty much Southern Jersey and Delaware have their own bracket because that's just pretty much recent as well. Maybe 7 or 10 years that been its own bracket because before they would play in the PA, triple A, double A, or single A. And then one year, one of the Jersey teams won, but we couldn't send a Jersey team to play for the Pennsylvania State Championship, so we had to send a runner-up. That's pretty much the scope of it. This will be this year's semi important one, right? 45 is a pretty good number.
Yeah, as you said, look, 45 years is nothing to scoff about. There's a lot of areas.
Yeah.
What's funny too is that, for people that don't know the geography of the area, and Mike, this is probably true for you up in Connecticut as well. It's very hard to explain to people how South Jersey is very much Philadelphia, but Western Pennsylvania is another state in which we don't get along. It's sometimes even more Ohio, but yeah, it's just fun, the geographical kind of mindsets that we have here. But I love that you talked about the girls and that they're growing. It's never easy to start something like that. And the fact that you're taking the steps forward to do it. And again, a lot of people might not realize that Eastern Pennsylvania is a kind of becoming a hotspot for girls hockey. The Junior Flyers have an amazing program, and it's
And
growing very quickly.
there's one name everyone should be keeping her eye on from Downingtown West, Ava Thomas.
Yeah.
She just made the U.S. national team last year. She had 10 goals in one game in the Flyers Cup last year. She's as legit as they come, and I think up until last year, she was playing on the boys team as well, and was one of their top three best players in the boys side. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's like you said, the Junior Flyers and all those girls programs are taking off.
No, it's coming. Now, here's another question I want to ask you. You brought up the interesting thing about AAA, AA, and A, and as you said, in high school hockey, it's a very, very different standard, right? And I can imagine you get a lot of questions about that when people come, and this is based on enrollment. It is not based on talent. And you're right. I've seen years where the single A could take on a AA, and it's just not based on that. So my next question would be, what are the major differences that you see from the club model to the high school model? Because again, it's not a lot of the kids are the same, but you get kids who just play school hockey. They don't, it's extracurricular. They're not trying to make the full-time club commitment to travel every single weekend for 6 months, right? What are the differences that you see there?
The biggest thing is, like, I'm a club coach now. I can go anywhere and get kids to come play for my club team. When you play for your high school team, you don't have that luxury. You get the kids that are in your boundaries, in your school district boundaries, unless of course you're a AAA team and you can take kids from anywhere. But that's the main thing. You're restricted by the boundaries in high school hockey, and it's a cycle. Like, I've been involved in high school hockey for 30 years, and it's a cycle. You'll have teams that go on a 6-year run where they have the players in their boundaries. And after that 6 years is up, they'll be on the downside for 6 years until it comes back. And you just have to ride it out. You have to take the good times and enjoy them, and you have to push through the bad times and just know that it'll get better at some point.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, I mean, just based off of other regions and other states, I mean, it's one of those things where, if the town has a good youth program or there's a lot of interaction between, that high school district and you have a rink in your town, it's a huge difference, right? But I also think it's strategically a great idea when you split these private and Catholic schools up out of the public school division. Only because they are by definition like all-star teams, right? I mean, they'd be playing against teams with a lot of kids from that district,
Right.
So I think I've never seen it. I know in Connecticut, I coached Connecticut high school hockey for, I don't know what it was, 8, 9, 10 years. And I always thought it was, and I coached a private school team. And I always thought it was crazy that we played the public school teams for any kind of championship. I just never thought it was fair, or I never thought it was strategically beneficial for the private school. Like, you don't want to lose to the public school team where you just recruited all, their 4 best players. So I think it's just, it's just one of those things where I think having it split up is probably a great idea, only, especially when you get towards the end of this, this championship season, where it just levels the playing field, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Right. And Lee, you're in the Philly area. You see it with PIAA football, right?
Yeah.
The public schools are complaining out the wazoo because St. Joe's Prep and I'm a Hop are winning the football.
Right.
And they can go into someone's public school and say, "Oh, you're the best football player. Come play on come to our school, come play for us." And some people think it's a fair advantage and some people think it's unfair. I stay in the middle. I just listen to everyone complain.
Yeah, you have to be neutral. I mean, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I don't have to be neutral because I don't coach for anybody. But I think I just think it's one of those things where if you're a school that's able to go in and take other schools' best players, then that school shouldn't have to compete against you for those to win. And you'll see it in every sport, right? I mean, I think hockey, I think honestly, I think that's where hockey in particular, and it sounds like in the Philly, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area is the same as a lot of other places where, school administrators and people that see these programs, it almost diminishes. If you don't run a true high school program, but baseball, lacrosse, soccer, and it's all like, okay, 1 practice a week, you just play games, administrators don't take those teams seriously. It's very hard for them to say, hey, budgetarily, like, why should we spend all this money on a program that really 90% of these kids are getting, their hockey outside of our district or for other means. It's not like, that's why you don't see club football teams and club baseball teams in season. And I think it does us all a disservice in the hockey community, especially on the East Coast, because you see it the most, where kids can do both, and they have these options to kind of pick the better program over the other on a regular basis. And if I'm an administrator of school, and which I have been, I'm like, well, they don't really need us. I mean, we don't need to spend our resources on these kids, because most of them on a Saturday night are choosing to go play, in a different tournament or on a travel team. So it just I think hockey would do itself a lot of favors by becoming more like hockey.
Split season?
Split season is fine. I mean, I think it's, I just think it'd be, if you ran your high school programs like a high school team, that means practice every day, in-season games, after Thanksgiving to March, that's fine. But if schools want to have teams, then, and this is only my opinion, by the way, schools want to have teams, then run it like a team. If not, then don't have the team. Let these kids go play club and then build a club division for the kids that normally, like Lee said, the kids that just come out and it's a PE class basically. Because I just think it's just so much stress.
Down here we have the Flyers Cup. We get to pick the teams and go in a tournament from 4 or 5 different leagues, right? We have the Central Penn League, which is out in the Hershey area. We have the Inter-County League, which is down in like Chester County, Delaware County area. We have the Suburban League, which is up here in Bucks County and Montgomery County. South Jersey has their own league over there. And then there's a league here called the APAC, the Atlantic Prep Athletic Conference. And those schools do pretty much operate the way you were just saying, Mike. They're fully funded. As far as I believe, like the LaSalle's, the Holy Ghost, the St. Joe's, the Malverns, they're considered legit varsity sports in their schools. Those teams practice more than once a week, and that's why they stay. Now it's a little bit of an unfair advantage when it comes to Flyers Cup time because those guys are doing it, and then you have to put the other open enrollment schools in there with them, like the Father Judges and the Cardinal O'Haras, who practice once, but they're still an open enrollment school. There's no happy answer for anyone. And, we have the rules, we stick to them.
Yeah. It's a good point you're bringing up, Eric, that, because a lot of the frustration I hear with people in the Flyers Cup, I think it's wrongly pointed that, they have an unfair advantage. Well, Is it an unfair advantage, or did they create themselves an advantage? Like, those are two very different things. And it's like, you can't expect the Flyers Cup committee, in my opinion, to tell a school how to run their sports. That's not, in my opinion, that's not your job, right? Like,
No,
your
no,
job is to organize the tournament. So, it brings me to an interesting point here, which is, and Mike, you're alluding to this too. There's this question I always have of identity. And Eric, you alluded to it earlier, where, it's not uncommon for kids to jump from club team to club team. I'm not saying that families and children don't take pride with playing for a certain club team. But I think that when things go bad, it's very easy to say, well, who else is out there? I want to go someplace else. And you said with a school, it's kind of like you play or you don't,
Yeah.
and I remember playing in my high school, and it was like, it was a different feeling. It's like, no, I'm playing for the school here. I'm not so much playing for just me. Right. I mean, this is my
Right.
school. This is where I go.
It means something to walk in the hallways of school the night after
Right.
you play a hockey game, and you have 100 or 500 of your classmates there watching, and you walk around proud as a peacock the next day,
Right.
walking the
Right.
halls. And that's where high school hockey has to separate itself from club hockey.
Right.
And it's getting there now.
Yeah.
The bad side about this is that because most of these schools aren't school sports, varsity sports, the kids come, the fans come, and they act like, there's no proper way for me to say this, but they act like animals.
Yeah. They act like
because
Eagles fans.
they know they can get away with it because there's no repercussions coming back.
Right.
Because it's not a school sport. And that's the biggest fight that high school leagues are having nowadays.
No, I can tell you this, and Mike, I'll paint the picture for you. And this is many, many years ago now, but I remember used to play at a local rink called the Stadium, which is a municipal rink in Havertown. And not only would it be full on game night, but there would be a cop at the top of every section back then.
Still is.
Still is, just because these crowds go nuts. But here's the thing. There's some, look, hopefully they behave themselves within a reason where the police don't need to do anything, but you never see that for a club game. So it's a totally different vibe. And like you said, look, when I was playing back in the late 90s, hockey was I'll just say it was a little bit of a rougher, tougher sport at that time. And just in terms of the physicality, yeah, you're right, man. Walking through the hallways in my jersey, it meant something to me. Like, and people knew you're a hockey player. So I'm saying I would never walk through the hallways in my club jersey, whether tier 1, tier 2, it doesn't matter. So I've always been interested in the pride that comes along with playing for your school. And Mike, the reason I brought this up, and I want your thoughts on this, Mike, is that's something that I don't want to say we lose it in club hockey. I don't think that's fair, because I think, again, you can have pride, but it's very different in club hockey, right? Like that is an aspect of club hockey that high school or elementary or middle school hockey, I think, has an advantage of. You're playing for your school. You do not have a choice on the selection process. They have to be from the district. I'm speaking obviously the AA kind of A divisions right now, but I think I wish that would exist a little bit more in club hockey sometimes, because I think it's an important part of the growth aspect of hockey, of using it as a vehicle for your growth, that, no, you represent something larger than yourself here.
Yeah. I mean, well, listen, this will give you a whole nother couple of series, but I think it's, I think at the end of the day, if you're in a community that has a facility, you need a rink, right? Everybody has fields, everybody has gyms, everybody has soccer fields. If you have a facility and you have an athletic community, you have a community that wants to stand behind kids playing sports, and you can do it in a way where from cradle to grave, you can build a model just like football. There's not a kid in my town that doesn't play soccer. Not one, not even the bad kid, like the kids that can't even walk, running around like they're just stumbling out there. They can't kick a ball. They can play soccer. When you create that environment in ice hockey, then you'll have change. When you create an environment where everyone can play, and this is the whole mission of the NHL and a lot of the local teams, right? When you create an environment and a culture everyone can play, and now you build that into your community. By the time these kids get to high school and you have a model that allows it to work, then you can be football and basketball. And I think I hear all about, it's money, it's money, it's money. It's not money. It's how you develop your resources. It's how you think outside the box. Like, to me, if I had a problem with money, I would go to my other local high school team and say, hey, can we split the cost of this rink? Like, why do I have to have all the ice? I don't even use all the ice. I'm not even a good coach. I can't even get the kids over the blue line anyway. So how can I create resources that help us? And I think, and not to get off topic, but what the Flyers Cup is doing, and what these kind of organizations do, is allow, at least at the end of the year, the best to be noticed, right? And the cream of the crop to come and have something to play for. Like, club teams, if you're not a national bound club team, you're really not playing for anything anyway. So at least at the high school level, these kids get to know at the end of the year they're competing for something. You could build culture around that. But there's certainly a disconnect in the hockey world, because most other sports, their club, the pinnacle of their club development is the high school. It becomes the state championship football team, because they're in my experience, they're all connected all the way down to the bottom. Like, you don't see a soccer club in town not connected with the high school soccer team. Like, all the kids kind of stay within the system. In hockey, the hockey club in town might be feeding 15 different schools.
Right.
Like, it's not a focused and developed program. And I think that's where the disconnect from an administrator point of view. If I'm in a high school and I'm like, well, what the hell are we doing here? We're trying to just start a team with most of our kids that don't even play hockey until they get to high school, and they say, hey, you know what? I'd like to play hockey now. And then we're asking the kids that do play hockey at the club level, the serious players, to kind of stick around and support that. So I do think that culturally, hockey's got a long way to go, only because there isn't a lot of, funneling of kids from the start to the finish. Now, the one, and I'm sure Pennsylvania has the same thing, the high school programs that are the most successful probably have a really vibrant, connected youth program, like the Minnesota model, right? Where that town is developing the talent that ends up at the high school. I don't think we see that in a lot of other communities.
Yeah, Eric, feel free to grab thoughts on that. Yeah.
Well, I think the key thing you said there is looking at it from the Flyers Cup and the tournament we put on. Mike, you just said it, Minnesota. You see that Minnesota high school tournament, you see the highlights on ESPN, and that's our goal. That's my goal as a Flyers Cup president. I want that for the Philadelphia area. Are we anywhere near that? No, but we're much closer to it now than we were 5 years ago.
I agree with that.
And that's the thing. Like, that's my goal. I would love to be able to put final games, if it was possible, down in the Wells Fargo Center and have that place be full, sold out, to watch a high school championship game like they do in Minnesota. And we're, like I said, we're years away from that, but it's that's the ultimate goal. I mean, our numbers in terms of the tournament and attendance, minus the 2 COVID years, have gone up and up. Like, so, for instance, this past year, we were able to hold, because the way it worked out, we had the AA final and the AAA final on the same night. First game started at like 6:00. Second game started at 8:30, and we had about 1,500 for each game, which was a parking nightmare, getting people in and out of the building, nightmare. But we had that. And then on top of that, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we started live streaming. The Flyers Cup has their own YouTube channel. So we've partnered with SFBN, and they've broadcasted every game in the tournament for free on our YouTube channel. 2 years ago, we had over 60,000 views for the tournament. This past year, 80,000 views. When the finals were going on last year, we had to sell out. The buildings were sold out. Like, the buildings couldn't hold any more people. So we told everyone, don't come. If you don't have a ticket, don't come. So we were able to, I have the ability to see how many people were watching, and in some cases it was up to 2,500 people watching live because they couldn't get into the building. So that's a big part of it too.
Huge. Yeah. And just to give context to everyone, when we talk about Minnesota, I mean, it's another level. I mean, look, they're number one in terms of the 50 states and how high school hockey is looked at there. And Eric's right. We go to that tournament in my camp multiple years now. And there's 15 to 20,000 people in the Xcel Energy Center for each game. And we're talking the semifinal and the finals for multiple divisions. It is an event in that state. Eric, I'm going to say, like you said, that's everyone looks to them of, well, that's where we want to be. And I think you're right. I think the Flyers Cup has made huge advancements towards that. Just keeping in mind too, that's like the diamond on the top of the mountain in terms of high school hockey. They just do it differently out there. But like you're saying, it's growing too. There's an interest in it. I think there's a little nostalgia when it comes to school sports. And like you said, the PIAA, which is Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, they're not involved, right? It's an interesting, that's another interesting thing to dive into if we can, about, the nature that it's a different governing body almost for this. I'm glad you followed the same kind of guidelines, but that's always been an interesting thing to me as well.
Yeah, it's, it pretty much goes back to what Mike was saying. If the schools can't control everything that goes on, have their own facility, the insurance, you always hear insurance is the money, then they don't want no parts of it. I believe me, I talk to high school coaches all the time. It's part of my job. They follow the PIAA where they have a good connection with their school AD or school principal. And on game days, they'll call the athletic director and say, hey, we're all my kids in school. And if the athletic director says, oh, no, someone wasn't in school today, then they don't let him play that night.
Right. Which is how it should be.
Which is the way it should be. That's the thing that gets me is parents. If a coach says, oh, you're not playing because you're failing 2 classes, and the parents say, well, we don't follow school rules, how come he can't play? You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to be nice about it, but you got the school club, the hockey team trying to do the right thing by the school so they can gain some support from the school, maybe get their team's games announced in the building in the school the day of the game and whatnot. And then you got a parent thinks their kid's a superstar and he had a tough couple days. He's just going to stay home today and rest up for the game tonight. Well, no, get your ass in school, right, and then go play in the game and be like the football player.
We talk about the life lessons of hockey on this show a lot, and I will tell you, and you guys tell me if you've heard different, but I have never heard the story of the great high school athlete that won the big game but failed out of school and then succeeded. Like, I've never heard that story, right?
No.
Man, we made the right choice keeping you out of school because you learned a lot about hockey. The truth is you learn more by not playing in the game and that accountability.
Exactly.
So, I just think the whole, everyone gets cheated when that happens, not just the player in question. It's the whole team, the coaching staff, everyone gets cheated if a rule is broken and you allow that kid to play, depending on your rules, obviously. But yeah, like I said, I've never heard the story of the high school athlete that went on to become a superstar because he missed school. And, it doesn't, that story never ends well. It's an outlier. I wanted to ask you this too. And again, answer this however you want. I'm not trying to dig deep here too much, but in your position, you probably get a lot of complaints and a lot of controversy and a lot of, this is how it should be done. Why, what you should do, what you should try. I just know from being in a role like this, that's what happens. So it's like a 2-part question. I want to start with kind of the negative of like, what are the complaints that you get all the time that, if you could tell those people, this is why it's done this way, what is that? But I also want to know, you probably get compliments too. But in the way media is done, the negativity is what seeps out. And we always talk about the controversial. So I want to end the episode on that too, of the positives, but let's start with the negative. What is the thing that everybody wants you to do that you hear every time you walk out of the house that there's a reason you don't do it?
Well, there's a couple here.
Yeah. We've got 3 more hours, so just go. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, whatever you want.
So like I said, it's broken down into, we'll just use the Pennsylvania boys AAA, AA, single A. You know, in the next couple weeks, we'll get a list of all the Flyers Cup eligible teams. First of all, and I think the most important thing that everyone has to understand is for your team to be eligible for Flyers Cup, you need to be a pure team. Pure means every single player on your team goes to that high school. That's number one. So if you have two neighboring schools and they combine a team, they're not pure, they're not getting in the Flyers Cup. So we'll get the list of the teams and we'll see how many are at each level for the PA boys. And it's usually right around 10 or 12 for AAA. And if that's the case, we'll put 8 teams into the Flyers Cup. For AA, it's right around 20 or 21 usually, and we'll put 16 teams in the Flyers Cup. Single A could be the same as AA. Sometimes if we feel like teams 15 and 16 are just going to be sacrificial lambs, or it's not, we'll only put 14 teams in. We have the right, we have to put 8 in, but that's all that we have. We don't have to add. So obviously, like the NCAA does the last couple of years, we've started a selection show that airs a week and a half before the tournament starts on our YouTube channel, and we announce all the teams and the brackets, and we get thousands of viewers to watching it. So that's on Sunday night, usually around 7 or 8 o'clock, and it's a guarantee. I put my phone on silence. I turn my phone off on Sunday night because I don't want to hear from anyone, and I'll turn my phone back on at 7 o'clock Monday morning. And the first messages will always be, if you put 16 teams in, will be from the 17th team saying, how come they got in and we didn't? So that's the number one. And they think, and I have to answer the questions. I have nothing to do. I have a committee of guys who watch the games all year. Like they'll start, high school hockey starts November 1st here. From November 1st to the middle of February, they'll be watching games everywhere, and they'll start plotting out. I just announced the teams that are in. You know, and if I have questions, I ask the guys, hey, how come this team's in? And I have the answers. I need to have the answers for when the phone calls come, or the text messages and the emails. So that's the first complaint. The second one is always a big one is, you know, there's rules. You know, kids have to play an X amount of games to be eligible, not only for the league playoffs, but for the Flyers Cup. And this goes back to the travel thing. So let's say a team plays 16 league scheduled games in their league. And, you know, they have travel guys, and their games are on Friday nights, and they have travel guys going to tournaments, and they're missing this game and this game and this game. You always have the coach who says, oh, how come this kid's eligible to play? He only played in 9 games. That's a pain in the ass. Transfer players who transfer, we follow the PIAA rules. If someone transfers after the 10th grade year, they have to sit a year out of postseason play. The Flyers Cup is considered the only postseason play.
Right.
Parents always ask, well, he got to play all year. He got to play in our league playoffs, and now you're not letting him play in the Flyers Cup. Well, that's decided in December, so they know well in advance. But that's another argument. They think that they can just transfer schools to get on a better team and be able to play. And you can't do that either. So they're the biggest negatives, and they consume so much of our time, because I'm not the only one that handles it. But we're usually prepared for all that stuff, and we try to get ahead of it. Like, you know, like I said, the tournament starts March 4th. You know, and the Flyers Cup committee, we've already started. Like, we've already started our planning. I actually have a Zoom call with all our guys on bad planning. We have it on Thursday night, and the Eagles play, but we'll get done before kickoff.
You got to plan around the Eagles. That's how that is.
And you know, we got the planning process. Like, it takes 6 months to plan 3 weeks. I love to call it controlled chaos, because that's what it is. You get to the Flyers
Cup tournament. Yeah.
You get to the Flyers Cup tournament, it's single elimination. You lose, your season's over. So you can have the best team having a bad day, and they lose, their season's over. And that's what everyone loves to see, the upsets, by the way. They love to see the upsets. Now the good stuff is we've been adding more teams in each bracket every year, which is good, which means more teams are trying to get pure and play for. As a high school player, your first goal should be to win your league and win your league championship and all that stuff. And then the Flyers Cup is totally separate. You know, that's what you're going for. The good stuff is via social media, and all our social media handles are saying, "Here's my cheap plug at the Flyers Cup." The social media has done wonders for the Flyers Cup. Got us more exposure, got us more views, people interested, and it's free. It costs us nothing to do it, right? It's free. We've also gone to online tickets where people have to buy their tickets in advance to go to a game. So with that, we can see behind the scenes how many tickets have been sold for each game well before that game. So we can let whatever building is hosting the game, we can give them that, hey, you're expecting 600. Boom, hey, this game has 1,100. This has to be sold out. We have to stop selling tickets. That's been a huge a plus for us. We've made it a goal to start giving back to the community. You know, like this first of all, this tournament doesn't happen. It's called the Flyers Cup for a reason. It doesn't happen without the Flyers. Like, they have our full support, and the Flyers alumni help us, and we help them. Last year, we bought the Flyers Cup purchased a bicycle for a special needs child, and we presented it in the Wells Fargo with the Flyers alumni, and we gave that bike. So that a couple $1,000 we're giving back. This past year, we have partnered up with Philadelphia Blind Hockey, this will be year 2 for Philadelphia Blind Hockey. And you should probably get her on here for one of your episodes too, because that's an awesome story, what she's doing. Kelsey. So last year we had 4 teams who would show up at 8:00 on a Sunday morning in West Philly. And the teams would send like 5 or 6 of their players, and they'd go out on the ice and work with the blind hockey players, teaching them how to skate, all that stuff. And most humbling, I was there every time just about, and seeing the faces on the high school kids, the players, being able to do that was one of the most humbling experiences of my entire life. And I get to see it. And we're expanding our role with Philadelphia Blind Hockey this year. 9 high school teams from all different areas of the Philadelphia region will be going to Hatfield Ice on Thursday night, and it's the Blind Awareness Month is October, so this is the end of it. So it'll be each team will be sending like 8 or 9 skaters and a goalie, dividing the ice into 3 sections, going across ice, and there'll be 3 3-on-3 games going on at the same time. However, all the high school players playing in those 3-on-3 games will be wearing goggles that make them visually impaired. So that's going to be an awesome event, and just getting the high school kids back into the community, seeing all this stuff that's going on, and then of course it all builds up to March, February, whatever that Sunday is for the selection show. That's when it really starts for us, and then once the tournament starts, it's 3 weeks of controlled chaos. We're in a hockey rink every night. We're on the phone with each other. Hey, who's winning this game? Where's the next round going to be played? And it's cool. It's fun. We get stressed out like in March because we're doing so much stuff, but the planning of it from now until March it's fun. And, we get to go out and, we don't have to, we just go watch hockey games, high school hockey games from now until the middle of February. And I don't know, that's fun for me. Like, it's fun for me because if I go up this way, like I coach a club team, I have 18 guys, and they're probably on 6 different high school teams. So when those 2 teams are playing each other, damn right I'm going, because I want to watch them try to beat the hell out of each other. And they will.
Right. Well, it's part of the competition. And I'll tell you a few things. Like, love that you brought up the Blind Hockey Association, because again, I think any experience you can give a young student on gratitude and being fortunate, or seeing it through a different perspective, or experiencing something through a different perspective. I mean, that's life experience. And I just don't think we do that enough in youth sports. I think that, I remember being in college, my college team, we had to go read to kids, and that was humbling. Just,
Yeah.
going there and experiencing something like that. So I love to hear that that's something you're getting involved in. And the other thing too is that you're sharing here about the macro. And again, most people have a hard time seeing the macro view of things. It's always the micro and where I'm at or where my kid is at. But you're saying you spend more time planning for this event than the event actually lasts, which I think says a lot. And then the other thing too is this. I understand with high school, especially if you got a senior and you don't make the Flyers Cup. It's like, why didn't we make it? This is his last year of high school. Well, when you look at something like the Flyers Cup, or you look at any tournament like that, the macro is, look, we're trying to grow hockey in the area, right? And it's very hard to see sometimes that decisions have to be made, whether you think they're fair or not, and maybe sometimes they aren't. Like, but the point is that anytime you want change, anytime you want growth, there's a tectonic plate kind of aspect, the volcanic aspect to it, and controlled chaos, right? You said it. So I think that one of the things I want to say is that, and I try and approach a lot of situations like this, whether you think something's unfair or not, try and take a step back and look at the macro view of how much. It's not like you just wake up in February and go, all right, these are the teams in the Flyers Cup. I mean,
Right.
It's not how it works.
We're trying to give these high school kids their best experience that they can have during the Flyers Cup. Look, in my eyes, put everyone in, but we can't have teams playing back to back to back nights. You physically can't do it. We're constricted by a timeline. We're constricted by building availability, and we have to play 50, 60, 70 games in 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, it's not possible, or we would.
Right.
But
right. No, and again, unless you want the tournament to go for 6 months after the,
you can't, like, and well, I think that's another important thing is with us following the PIAA guidelines. Sort of, we'll have the PA state championships on the 23rd of March, and if I'm almost 100% sure that's be the same day of the PIAA basketball and wrestling and all that stuff championships, because that ends the winter season. Right. So usually on the 24th, these kids have to start playing lacrosse and baseball.
Right.
And
another thing people don't think about. Yeah.
We don't want a club high school coach going to the school sponsored lacrosse or baseball coach saying, hey, I need this guy for 2 more weeks in my season because we're still going on, and he has to miss lacrosse or baseball. We don't want that.
No, well, then what happens then is then you get the parents from the lacrosse teams go, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
The coaches, wait a minute. Yeah. So there's a rhyme to the reason every year, and it's not
everything we do for a reason. Whether people see the reasons or want to accept the reasons or want to believe the reasons, we do everything for a reason.
Right. Mike, I want to throw it to you just to close out any other questions that you might have.
No, I mean, no questions really. Just the comment that, I love coaching high school hockey. I think the kids that play high school hockey, for a lot of reasons, the least of which sometimes is the level of play. They love playing, and I think the opportunity for them to play on an NHL rink in front of their friends and family and peers and wearing their school colors, I think it's great. So what you're doing is, I'm sure you do get a lot of heat, and coming from that area of my life as well. I mean, you just keep reflecting on all the good kids that you come in contact with and give the opportunity to. And I think, if it's not for people like you and these things don't exist, these kids don't get these opportunities. And it's a great chance for them to, end, especially seniors, right, end their high school playing days, which is probably going to be the most people they're ever going to play in front of in their life anyway, and the most experience they're going to have. I mean, make it a great one and enjoy that moment. And for those players that go on and move on with hockey, it doesn't diminish them at all. Just uplifts everyone. So I think it's great, and congratulations on recent success and getting through COVID. and your
that was a
and
struggle.
and
But
visionary
that's,
goals you have for where you want to bring the program, I think is great.
yeah, can I just tell a quick story here? Like
Yeah,
this
please.
past year, every year when we do the selection show, we some years we have the coaches of who the number one seeds are on the show or not. This past year, we're able to line up a Zoom call of players who played in the Flyers Cup in their time. So the panel consists of Colby Cohen, NHL broadcaster, player, Eric Tangradi, Sam Lipkin. If anyone doesn't, are you up in Connecticut, Mike? Did you say?
Yeah.
So
Close.
you know who Sam Lipkin is, right?
I don't think so, but maybe I'll have to look him
You
up
don't?
now.
How far are you from Quinnipiac?
Oh yeah, close. Okay, yeah, we're about an hour, but same
All
thing
right.
outside.
So Sam Lipkin played at LaSalle High School 4 years ago, then played on the World Juniors this past year,
Yeah.
and got the assist on the game-winning goal in the
Oh
national
yeah,
championship past year.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
We had Colby Cohen, who played in the NHL, but then he was a broadcaster out in Chicago and Philadelphia. Eric Tangradi, who played for the Penguins. Those two guys played in the Flyers Cup back in the 80s, played against each other, and are telling great stories.
Yeah, it continues to grow. And again, the sport continues to evolve in this area. And again, the molten lava aspect of that takes time sometimes to develop. And again, 45 years is nothing to scoff at, by kind of coming off the heels of those Flyers championships in the mid 70s. And then the high school league began. And, Eric, I'll tell you this, my kids, my daughter's in first grade, my son's in fourth grade tonight, as we're recording this, their first elementary school practice. So I'll be sure to have you on in 7 to 8 years to complain about how their high school team.
What, Haverford High School?
Yeah.
So
Haverford Elementary.
So John
yeah.
Povey. You know Mr. John Povey.
I know him well. I actually played with him. I was a senior when he was a freshman. So
one of my good buddies.
Yeah, he's a. We should have him on the show because he's an outstanding human being. Just in the game, until he gets it.
There's not enough time in a day to have Jabberjaw's Povey on any kind.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a good man. So
great man.
Eric Ty, this has been a great conversation, and I appreciate you giving us some perspective into what it takes to run something like the Flyers Cup, and just kind of how decisions are made, and how you view things. Because I don't think, and again, especially for the purposes of our show, these are the conversations that need to be happening that are not happening. There's just a lot of assumption of how things are done, how things are chosen. And I love the perspective that this is a season-long process to put something together for 3 weeks. You have aspirations to grow this beyond probably what anybody understands or thinks. And at the end of the day, it's for the kids, right? To try and give these kids a great experience in high school, and understanding that, academics are important and that rules need to be followed, and that a lot of this comes down to just building it the way it's supposed to be built. And I just want to applaud you on that, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest mistakes I do is, like you just said, kids or hockey players, and I try to correct myself all the time. They're student athletes.
100%.
Whether the school recognizes them, doesn't recognize, they're still student athletes, and both of those words are very important. They need to be a student first, and then they need to be an athlete.
Right. No, and by far, if you want the best growth experience for your kids, they have to have a clear understanding of that, because there's no way you're going to survive college hockey if you don't have a grip on that, number one, much less things that come after. So, Eric Ty, I want to thank you again for being on today. This was a fantastic episode.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Nice meeting you guys and talking to you. Lee, if you're in the area and you ever want to come watch some stuff, get my email. Maybe I'll give you a free ticket.
We'll talk, buddy. I think you're going to see me more than you think. Yeah. Who is that guy? It's that guy that interviewed? No, he put him in the lower sections. No. But that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, all the episodes can be found OurKidsPlayHockey.com. And as you said on the show, Eric, at the Flyers Cup, go check them out. If anything, just give a little scroll through their news feed on Instagram or X, as we talked about, just to see how they're doing it, to see how it's going.
Oh, say Twitter, would you? Jesus.
Yeah, the Twitter X Twitter. X Twitter. That sounds actually better now that I think about it. It's going to be a long time before nobody calls that Twitter. So anyway, everybody, have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, OurKidsPlayHockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.